Nutrition is a really complicated topic. There's a reason why there's a full-time professional position known as a registered dietitian where all they do is tell people what to eat, how to eat, when to eat. Nutrition's complicated, so you shouldn't have to do it by yourself. That's why I made this video. Now today we're going to cover the basics needed to understand nutrition enough so that I can actually help you improve your nutrition. There's a base level of knowledge that you have to have before we can really dive deep into nutrition strategies. Imagine hiring a riding coach that's supposed to help you get better at jumping, but you actually haven't learned how to start the bike or ride in a straight line while using the clutch. And by the end of the video, I want you to understand nutrition enough that you're ready to start applying these concepts in your everyday life and especially towards your riding. So, step one, macronutrients and micronutrients. What is the difference? Well, macronutrients are things that we eat that provide energy to our body. Micronutrients are things that we eat that do not provide energy, but are still important for several body functions. They just won't give you any energy for motos or training or anything like that. So now let's talk about what are the different macronutrients. We have protein, carbohydrates, fat, and alcohol, the fourth one that people don't know about, but don't worry, we don't drink that anyways. Let's break these down piece by piece. Protein has one job and one job only, and that is to repair damaged tissues. We need to repair damaged tissues so that we can recover from our training. Every time you're sore, you have damaged tissues. That's why we need protein to help rebuild those tissues stronger than they were before. And in general, and this is really important, I say in general because there are always exceptions, protein does not provide energy for training. So you should not be grabbing a protein shake to fuel your moto. I'll get into what you should grab in just a moment. So typical sources of protein, meat, of course, things like turkey, chicken, lean cuts of beef, steak, we have eggs, egg whites, some plant-based foods, like beans and legumes, and then we have our supplements like whey protein. Now let's talk about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates have one job and one job only, and that is to fuel your body for training, for living, for thinking. Carbs are the main fuel source for everything that your body's gonna do. If you eat something that's not a carb, your body usually has to turn it into a carb before you can even process it and use it for energy. Now these are the types of things that you should be eating to fuel motos. That'd be things like your pasta, rice, bread, granola, oatmeal, fruit, sports drinks. And this isn't even a whole list. This is an incomplete list, but you get the idea. All right, now let's talk about fat. Fat has a little more of a complex role. We need fat just for general health. It helps us do things like absorb vitamins, and it helps keep our hormones in check, and a bunch of other small things that we don't really need to talk about in this video. It's also a very powerful form of energy. The catch is that it's mostly used, or it's used the most at low intensities. So if you've ever been on a treadmill or a bicycle, or you're using a heart rate monitor of some sort, and it chimes in and says, hey, you are burning fat. That means that the exercise intensity that you're currently at is using primarily fat as your fuel source. It's not the only fuel, but it's the primary fuel. Now it's important to note that if we're trying to keep our energy levels high, like in between motos, we don't want to go for things that are high in fat because high in fat foods also slow down your digestion. If you only have 30 minutes in between Moto 1, Moto 2, you don't want anything slowing your digestion down. You want light carb sources like the previous foods we listed in your granola bars and your fruit, that can be digested quickly and your body can actually use them for energy. If you increase your fat intake with those snacks, like adding peanut butter to it or adding oils, it's just gonna slow down the digestion and the energy is not gonna get back into your body as fast as it needs to. Now, some examples of fat-dense foods are gonna be things like olive oil, butter, peanut butter. I can't even tell you how many gym bros I've heard go, yeah, man, I need some more protein for the day, so I had 2 big spoonfuls of peanut butter before I went to bed. That is the most idiotic thing I have ever heard. Peanut butter, yes, does have some protein in it, but it is way more fat. There's way more fat in peanut butter than protein. Do not use it as a protein source. And a couple of other sources would be things like avocados and then nuts. All right, so those are the macros. Now, we went through that stuff pretty quick. If you need more time to digest, pause the video, rewatch the beginning, make sure you start to understand some of these concepts because we have to understand this stuff before we can move on and make it any more complicated.